gone missing too.
It's
And
gone missing? I didn't
well,
know.
I didn't think it was at the house. And then this set that I got you was supposed to replace the Mary Corkmas set, but they didn't have ones that said Mary Corkmas anymore.
Merry Corkmas.
Yeah.
I collect weird things. I mean, besides having 15 Bigfoot
Oh,
stickers on my car, I also have Bigfoot ties. I have corgi wine glasses. I'm basically a Disney dork without the Disney. Oh no, wait.
oh wait. No, so Chris and I had a conversation this week about sweater vests. Um, you know what came up
I should
during
let me find the photo.
well, she had a
So
reel that went and did really well, and it featured a picture of her in this sweater vest. You know what came up during the course of our conversation about sweater vests,
the fact
father
that I
dear?
wear one every day at work,
Yeah,
You
I was supposed to ask
hoard
how many
them.
you own.
7 right now.
I made a
And why is it
video.
only seven?
Why only 7? Because I
I
can't
let
find
you
an
wear.
eighth.
And who has restricted you from shopping at Goodwill to buy more sweater vests?
A 23-year-old girl I know. Um,
I was actually aiming for mom. Mom was the correct answer here.
so funny story, for those who are looking for insight into my life and how fun it is. The 100th day of school was last Monday on the 29th of January for our school. And the kids dress as old men.
Did Micah dress as you? Was that why he was wearing
And
that?
oh no, it wasn't just the potato. It was every boy in kindergarten, first and second grade was wearing a sweater vest, a button-down shirt, and a tie, and also a pork pie hat, which I do not wear pork pie hats. But they all basically look like miniature Mr. Barbers. In fact, most of them were Argyle sweater vests, of which I have an alarming number of. I think I have 5 of my 7 are Argyle.
Oh my gosh.
Yep.
For homecoming this year, we had dresses your favorite teacher, dresses your favorite student, and most of our kids, including the girls, dressed as one of our science teachers. There were a lot of ball caps in our school. He took it alarmingly well.
So I actually initially started wearing the um, sweater vests to show off or to cover up the poof. Because unlike other people, I don't have puffy hair. I have puffy other sides of my body. Um, and so, but I've also recently, I mean, I would say over the last 2 to so years, I've been really working on losing weight. So I'm not as puffy as I used to be, but it's such a thing, and I don't really like the look of just a shirt and frankly, because I have lost weight, my shirts don't stay tucked in. So it covers that part up. But I love me a sweater vest. I also used to wear waistcoats. Like I still have a couple. I have a leather one and a blue one from when I used to tour. But
And a red
at
one.
one point I had, oh, I do have a red one too. Um, I want to say
I
15
know
or
which one.
20 different colors. Because I used to wear only white shirts, black ties, and then my waistcoats were my variant of color. But I'd wear that stuff on the weekends when my wife and I were first married. Like before Megan was born, that's how I would dress on the weekends. I'd have a tie on, unless we were working in the yard. Mhm.
That's
Mine,
alarming.
yeah.
Oh yeah, I was a 40-year-old English gentleman when I was 25.
I was gonna say, so you were slightly psychotic with the clothes. My mother likes circus peanuts, like those foam things, black licorice, and what was the other one that's like
Candy
alarm?
corn.
No, it's not the candy corn. It's something else. It's like alarmingly weird that she likes and like genuinely likes. Well, she doesn't like cake, so that could just go on the list too. So, mom's
You
a food.
literally like name 3 things that I'm okay with.
Well, you're psychotic too, then. I don't know what to tell you.
Okay, so in all fairness, my mom used to decorate cakes like for a living. So when it's like around you all the time and your whole house smells like cakes and your clothes smell like cakes and your hair smells like cakes, like you want to vomit at the thought of cake.
But
So like you get
circus
over it
peanuts,
quickly.
circus peanuts.
I actually really like them. But okay, so for the black licorice thing, I like traditional black licorice. American black licorice is disgusting.
You know what
Sheets,
I tried
was
over
it
the
the
weekend?
Mike, not Mike and Ike's, Good and Plenty on trips? Because we car trip, we don't fly all that often.
I fly. I
You
fly all the
fly,
time.
but it's
I
like,
have,
oh, we live in Texas, let's go to Florida. It's only 16 hours. It'll be fun.
I think I have 9 flights in the next, or 10 flights in the next 5 months.
So, as charming and wonderful as this is, where are we going today?
Oh, you mean we actually are supposed to talk about something specific?
Well, I mean, at this
Talking.
point, this is largely a conversation with ourselves anyways, because we have like 12 viewers from last week. So sorry, if you're one of our 12 viewers, we really appreciate you.
So you are
And we would
valued.
like you to share this shit with other people.
It's
Hey,
true.
hey, I may be bad about posting on our actual Instagram, but Chris is so good about sharing the things that I do post that it
I
makes
don't
up.
even see our Instagram.
Well,
Toastie
people
Ghosties
do.
is like an invisible ghost on my Instagram.
Well, not as bad as my bookstagram, let me tell you.
Mm.
Uh, I
It, I
have you
think
and I have this one other person who always comments on it, and I always so appreciate it.
your two viewers.
Yeah, literally.
Everything.
Yeah, I'm starting to feel like my school's Instagram account used to be. We have to up this viewership. So up our viewership. So what's our subject?
We're doing time part 2 because none of the rest of us managed to
Part
do our
two.
research.
That's me staring out the window at the dog who's barking. There are 3 other
No.
whole ass adults who can go deal with her this week.
Who,
2 other.
what's it say? Wait a minute. Yeah, we're doing time part 2 because none of us could be bothered to do research this week because we all got real busy.
Yeah, I needed more time on the Nephilim.
Yeah, that's fine. We can do it next week. But
Yeah, it was a bad day. That's all.
All
I'll
right.
say.
So time part 2.
it
I
is sci-fi.
propose that we push away from biblical time and longevity and go towards wormholes, time travel possibilities. What do you think? Oh my
The
gosh, this
Star
dog
Trek
is
stuff.
barking loud enough that I can hear it through my phones.
We can't hear
Yes,
it.
Oh,
I
good.
can.
Oh, okay. I can hear it.
Yeah, we're doing the sci-fi approach here.
Yeah,
Which I know nothing about, so I'm here for comedic relief.
well, um, tons of great stuff there.
Hold on. I'll be back.
He's gotta go yell dogs. And now we're gonna get all off topic again. Because if we keep talking about it, he's gonna come back in the middle of a conversation and have no idea what the hell we're talking about.
Right.
So. But you get the floor when we come back. This is a commercial break, folks. What can we plug here? Read this book. Everybody go read it.
Okay.
Yeah.
What is
Everybody
it?
should read this book. It's like pirates and Viking meet the Fae. Wonderful.
Oh,
Wonderful book.
okay. Okay.
I
So
know.
Pirates, Vikings, Fae.
Yes.
I don't really care about the Fae, but
Well, that
Pirates,
you,
Vikings.
they're pretty cool. They're pretty cool. I like the Fae, so like I'm here for it. Yes, it's technically like a second generation book, so she has this whole other series out. The author is L.J. Andrews. She has a whole other series out that's like the prequel series, but you don't need to read that to read this one, but I highly recommend it. We're plugging books now while we waited for you.
Oh,
Listen to a book screen.
Commercial break over.
Okay. Not too long ago, a guy named Art Bell was doing a radio show that was a little bit more popular than ours. Not much though, just a little bit more popular than ours. So he encouraged people to like fax in and email in some information if they knew anything about time travelers. Have you guys ever heard anything about time travelers?
I know
Um,
Stephen Hawking threw a party for them,
oh,
but they didn't show up or something.
well,
Like,
yeah, I remember that, but I also it's
I thought
always
it was
the
an
the
interesting
people
concept.
who post the signs or having a party for or all time travelers meet last Thursday
Yeah.
kind of signs. Um, there are definitely pictures of things that are asynchronous. You know, and even things, as you can see, to this day, people wearing modern sunglasses in pictures from the Old West.
Mhm.
People who seem to, I mean, this kind of goes to vampirism and immortality too, but people who seem to remarkably look like other people from the past. And I mean,
Anne
like,
Hathaway and Shakespeare.
well, I mean, it goes beyond the Keanu Reeves and looking like every surfer dude who ever has lived on planet Earth.
Mhm.
But you definitely have others. But there's also stories even going back and way back in time, meaning like Egyptians and the people from the dawn of time talking about people who seem to be out of place, or petroglyphs of things that look like, you know, people wearing spacesuits, for
Astronauts.
lack of a
Yeah.
better term. Yeah. But humanoid, not necessarily like we come from outer space, but like, you know, like um potentially humans coming back from time. So
Yeah, and I think that's like so fascinating to me. Like we've all seen like these incredible photos that keep popping up online. And I don't know if you guys ever watched the TV show Fringe. Um, if you're really into time and parallel universes and stuff like that, Fringe is the
oh,
show to watch.
Fringe.
Fringe,
I
yeah.
heard French and I was like,
French, yeah.
I don't even like the
The
French.
French know what they're doing.
Unless you're a viewer of ours, then we like the French.
We gotta love the French, right? Um,
Baguette.
so Fringe is really great because it really does kind of deal with how can we go back and change time. And they have something called the observers, and they
Hmm.
all are the bald head guys that wear like the black suits, and they go and they observe time, but they don't, yeah, but they don't interfere with time. Um, so Art Bell started getting facts from a guy named John Tudor. Of course, that wasn't his real name, but
Hope
he
not.
started calling himself John Tudor, and he kind of talked about being a time traveler from the year 2034. Sorry, got notes. A little bit of notes. Don't get excited, but I got notes. From the year 2034, and he would like progressively like talk a little bit about being a time traveler, and then he would disappear for a while, and then he would pop back on. Like a few times it was faxes, and then he would show up a few years later, and it would be like chat rooms.
Okay.
And so like people would actually be able to talk to him and kind of be like, well, what's really going on? How can you explain this stuff? Like, can you show us your time machine? Like, what's going on with your world? Can you show us the history? Like, can you show us the science behind it? And he was like, sure, sure, sure. I'll do this. I'll do this. He claimed to be from 2034. Um, and he often talked about like how you could only travel back a certain time because the more you traveled back, it was almost like a funnel effect. Um, that obviously time's not linear. Every single time you travel, you're creating offshoots and patterns
Yeah,
in time. So the further back you travel, the more you're going to change time, the more time's just going to naturally change itself. Um, just because you're going into a different timeline, into a different warped perspective. Um, but he also said that there was never anything after 2564. They didn't matter how many times they did everything and they tried, the furthest they could go ahead was 2564.
interesting.
So it was almost like the world, like they kind of just assumed the world was going to end. So the idea was just kind of come back and like observe what was going on. And he talked about how there were a lot of things in his timeline while he was there that he experienced, like Y2K was actually a big deal for his timeline. And it caused Civil War to break out, which also provided, I think, I should have wrote down like the years in particular, but you can kind of look it up. But like, I think 2004 or something like that, like World War III broke out, basically an apocalyptic type of future. And then very quickly, the world kind of just settled down, anything outside of cities, it just kind of got right back to living that like post-apocalyptic The Walking Dead type of life without the zombies, where you just kind of have to live from scratch again and like focus on family and gardening and all this other stuff and kind of getting to know your neighbors. And he talked a lot about like this is how you can prepare for all this stuff. But there were his philosophy was like there's a many world theory, is the fact that there's many worlds and many offshoots of what's happening. So just because my world did this doesn't mean that the world is going to do this.
Right.
Because just because I came from this specific timeline doesn't mean it's going to happen. Now, I'm not saying this guy's real. No. Like, it's not necessarily saying that this guy's real. There's been people out there that have claimed that they've proven that he's not real. There's people out there that believe that he is. There's a lot of science behind some of the stuff that he's kind of like slightly predicted to be true. Like there's some theories that like have slowly come about to be accurate that he predicted. If you want to dig into it, I don't want to dig into it and tell you guys stuff. And see, this is why Alex should be here, because then he could just fill in the gaps.
Because Alex, of course, would know this.
I know. Like Alex would have already taken over the conversation for me. Like I would have just said the name and he would have been able to tell the story better because he would have remembered all the science. But it is interesting to hear this guy kind of read it. And like I remember like reading the transcripts and stuff like that. It's interesting to hear some of the stuff that he was saying about how what he did kind of say during this time period before he disappeared again. He did disappear again. He said, hey, he left a note. I'm leaving. I'm going back to my timeline, or at least trying to get close to my timeline again. I've warned the people I could warn. I talked to the people I could talk to. And I'm gone. Here's what I tell you that the only advice I can tell you yet. Mad cow disease is going to pop up again. Don't eat animals that eat themselves. And which that did pop up. That popped up again for us. And there's been like a few other things that have kind of just popped up. I know like Hawking's had a theory that he said was incorrect about wormholes that wound up like Hawking's like I think 3 or 4 years later actually it was like, oh yeah, this is totally wrong. I had it completely wrong. And like it wound up being the theory that this guy had. Like the guy had it right. And Hawkins was like, I totally messed up, guys. My bad. And so it's a lot of fascinating stuff, but there's tons of stories. Like this is just one example of one guy who's like, I'm a time traveler. And there's tons of us. I know I've read stories about 2 brothers that were like working with the military, and they kind of got like roped into going back in the past and had like crazy experiments and then coming back.
So there were a couple of different things that have happened. One was there was a is it the USS Philadelphia, I think it was, in World War II-ish time, that there was all these stories that actually jumped forward in time. It disappeared from the timeline and then reappeared. And then there's a couple of things that definitely makes you think about, you know, whether or not these sorts of possibilities are true. The idea of wormholes, and you are correct that there was in fact a time when Stephen Hawking thought one thing about wormholes, and then he rethought it, and he came back and was like, no, that oh, I froze really badly. And he came back and said, no, this is not the way that wormholes would work if they do work. So
Right.
there's definitely some things that have appeared along with just the general idea of time travel. I mean, time travel itself has been an idea. I mean, as far as the human concept in the sense of like in the popular lexicon, it's been around since at least 1895 in H.G. Wells' story.
Right.
But I'm sure it is much more than just that. There was something you said that really sparked a thought, and I can't quite grab it. And I wish I could. I
Well,
wish you.
I was just thinking,
Hmm?
um, when she was talking about, or like when, so you were talking about how the guy, when he was time traveling, he would say, like when he came back, or hold on, give me a minute. I got it. When he would travel through time and come to our timeline. So you're saying that he was in a, not only was he time lapping, but he was timeline hopping. Like he was in a different, he was in like a parallel timeline version, correct?
I I think so. I'm not quite sure. It's been a while since I've like sit down and read the full transcripts of everything that he talked about, but
As I say,
But
because
I know
you
he would
mentioned the
disappear
whole,
for a while.
right. Well, then you had mentioned the whole like, in his timeline, he had said that there was, like the Y2K thing was like a huge deal for him, and then it started, or for them, and then it started, World War III and everything. So let's just say the guy was actually a time travel and he came from a different timeline and a different time era. That's really interesting that he would come back with information regarding his own timeline to our timeline because like
It's unfalsifiable though.
right, like you can't check
Right.
them. You can go either way.
And I
Like
think that was like part of the issue was that, and that was his argument was like that's the reason why we don't interact. Because like a lot of people on the boards were like, well, if this whole thing is time travelers are real and there's so many of you guys, like why is this not a thing? And he like told a story about how when he was a kid, um, him and his parents were driving down the road and they saw a person stranded on the side of the road. And they were like on their cell phone, they were like calling somebody, but his parents didn't stop. And he asked his parents, like, why are we not stopping? Why are we not helping these people? And his parents were like giving tons of excuses. Well, they can help themselves. They ran out of gas. They should take care of themselves anyways. This will make them learn their lesson. Like they have cell phones, they can help themselves. They need to learn how to help themselves, kind of thing. And like just kind of offering these excuses, but at the same time, he was like, as a time traveler, I kind of get it. Like you kind of have to help yourselves. Like our timelines are going to be different because I will not go back to the same timeline because our timelines are going to shift. Like my timeline will not exist anymore because it's a funnel system. Like I go back in a point, but it spreads out as time goes. So he said that there were like a few things that would pretty much like stick to a point. They were researching um
almost like anchor points, kind of like they
yeah,
happen in the
yeah,
timeline.
yeah, there would be like anchor points that like there were certain things that just wouldn't change
Gotcha.
that were just so monumental. Like Y2K, we were able to fix it. Well, who's to say someone didn't go back in time and show us how to fix it and fix that situation so that we fixed the war in our timeline?
Well, so there was a movie 1988, 89, Star Trek. And it was the fourth movie, whatever it was called, I forget. Not Undiscovered Country, that was the sixth one. But it was the whole premise of the movie shot around the idea that a probe comes to the planet and the probe is asking a question, but in a language we don't understand. And when they decoded the code for, because it was showing up in the oceans of different worlds and specifically in Earth, and what it comes down to is that cetaceans, meaning whales, were actually one of the dominant species on the planet millions and millions of years ago. And this probe was actually sent to test how the wildlife was doing. And whales are now extinct. So specifically humpback whales. And so the Star Trek crew has to go back in time. They do a slingshot around the sun and increases their speed to beyond light speed. They go in and they go back in time to 1980, whatever it was, and they have to pick up 2 humpback whales. All right, that's not even really the important part of this story. The important part is there was a character, Montgomery Scott, Scotty, the engineer. He meets with a guy, and they need, something like 6,500 tons of transparent aluminum to hold in the water and the whales on this spaceship. But they go to Earth at a time that transparent aluminum was not available. And they go to a fabricator and they're like, hey, could you make this? And Scotty types on his computer and shows, of course, the computer happens to have a CAD program, and it shows the thing for transparent aluminum. And the guy is like, we could fabricate this. And holy moly, really? And then um, the doctor character, he DeForest Kelly was the actor. I can't remember the character. His name Bones. That's it. He says, you can't tell this guy this formula. And Scott looks at him and says, how do you know he didn't invent it?
True.
And that's the thing. So I mean, in reality, so like when everybody made fun of Marvel for doing the timeline hop that was happening in Infinity Wars, the second version of whatever that was with Endgame, right?
Yeah.
And so when people were making fun of that, that was essentially just string theory being told.
Yeah.
Yeah, like and it makes perfect sense, because if you go back in time and kill Hitler as a baby, first of all, you're a monster because you killed a baby. But beyond that, because you don't really know how, I mean, we know, but you don't know, because now your presence has affected that timeline. So that is going to split off and branch to another timeline. So what this guy was saying makes perfect sense in the idea of timelining. Like if you went back in time or you went forward in time, like, yeah, how horrible would it be to have a time machine and you go forward and you're like, you set it for the year 3000, and it's like, yeah, no, nope.
That
You're like,
simply doesn't.
oh, I know the end of the world now.
Right.
There was do you remember the Superman episode? Megan, years and years and
No,
years ago, back at
that was
Superman, the animated,
no, it was Justice League when Superman gets sent forward in time.
was it Justice League? And he finds the guy who was a Cro-Magnon man who was
Yeah,
like affected by a meteor, like
yeah,
billions
like
of
in
years in
like
the past.
yeah. What the hell is that guy's name? I just watched an episode with him too. It was the World War II episode. Brad and I are watching all the Justice Leagues right now. Obviously,
Who doesn't?
I grew
And,
up.
well, I mean, but the
But
scariest,
yeah,
right?
you should get on it then.
But the best part of that was Superman sees him 27,000 or 25,000 years in the
Yeah,
future, and he's by himself
right. Well,
because
because
he
he
can't die.
can't
If
die.
the Earth died,
What was the kid's that dude's
Crank,
name?
Kronk, something like
No,
that.
it's not Frank. I keep wanting to say Simon Stride, and that's not not correct.
Lucy Peru, can this be you?
That's to
That's
say,
Simon
it's not
Stride.
Jekyll and Hyde. I am pretty positive on that. I'm looking it up now though. Dude who can't die.
But even, I mean, and if you think about it, like here's a fun little fact. If you think 1895, Albert Einstein, or not Albert Einstein, excuse me, H.G. Wells writes the Time Machine, his short story, The Time Machine, right? In 1905, Albert Einstein produces his theory of special relativity,
Right.
which actually deals with consistency or constancy, I guess is actually the right word, of light speed, saying that if you go out into space and you move at a certain speed, you will stop going forward in time because you're moving at the speed of light. But if you come back to Earth, you're going to come back to Earth, and it's going to be a different time period, which is actually the same basic concept of H.G. Wells' story. All right.
Savage. Randall Savage.
Randall Savage, correct. And then
Crazy.
52 years later, 1957, Russian astronauts are sent into space, and they are actually trying to do the theory of spatial relativity. And they, in fact, some say, they sound like Trump, some say, but some say that it actually worked, but not for a large period of time. But there was a certain amount of time that they cannot relate to with these astronauts that they sent out to I guess it would have been low atmospheric orbit in the late 50s, early 1960s. What I'm saying is time travel 100% can happen.
Mhm.
I mean, just look at even the movie The Dial of Destiny, which was god awful movie, let's be honest, right? And I love Indiana Jones. I love all that kind of stuff and the adventure, dun 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 dun, right? Kind of stuff. But he has the Dial of Destiny, and it's Archimedes' Dial of Destiny, which is a thing, okay? It's the Arkenstone concept, and that measures rifts in time. But the entire thing was he actually set it up so that you, wherever you went to the rift in time, you went back to the same time no matter what happened, which was his battle, Archimedes' battle, and to save him. It was all like, save me. All right. Um, but it makes sense. There have been legends for God only, probably as long as there have been humans, that there are special spots that you can go in the earth. And if you go into
Mhm.
those spots, you could come out at a different place or a different point in time or even a different universe. And even when we talk about the multiverse, you're really talking about different timelines because things aren't going to happen exactly the same on a multiverse.
Well,
You could be
So,
that's
speaking German right now in a different multiverse. Who knows?
well, I mean the whole like portals, for lack of a better term, within the Earth thing. I mean, that's where you get the whole like Fae situation coming from too,
Mhm.
like with the old myths and then like the old
Right.
Irish gods and everything like the Tutha. Like Ireland is famous for that one. Like,
Hmm.
Right.
you know.
Well, and that's kind of like,
Well, does that go back to ley lines?
Yes.
Sorry.
follow the beam, guys, follow the beam. Sorry, that was a Stephen King reference. So this kind of like gets right back to a nice segue into hopefully something we do soon, but something I've actually been wanting to ask, but I've been like really kind of scared to ask.
Oh dear.
Bigfoot. Do you think he's a Neanderthal?
No, I think
Like,
it's a Gigantopithecus. um, Specifically Gigantopithecus blacki. However, it is a possibility, and here's the other thing: is there are a lot of people who report when you go into the Bigfoot reports, seeing green flashes, seeing the flashes of light before and after they appear. And let's be
right.
fair, you
He
know,
only ever appears with one foot.
not true, but going on, when you look at, you know, okay, if he's going from a field into mud and suddenly the footprints appear,
Oh
and then he goes
no.
back into another field
Ugh.
and then the footprints disappear, it's because he's walking on grass. But if he's walking in mud and it just starts in mud and it ends in mud, but there's, let's say there's 10 steps, but there isn't a one before it and there isn't one after it, but he's on the same kind of soil, it doesn't make sense for it to just be there. But also, it doesn't make sense that like Megan snuck out into a field, stuck on fake Bigfoot things that are 5 miles off of
Why am
the.
I the one sneaking around doing all this stuff this time?
Okay,
Makes total sense to me. Total sense to me.
okay, and she's 4 miles off track, and maybe one person every 10 years actually goes out there. It's not like somebody's setting that up as a hoax.
Right.
So, is it possible that they're interdimensional, or is it possible that they're popping in and out of the timelines and they don't
Mhm.
know it?
Right. Yeah.
That's interesting.
Same thing.
I
I get that way with things like pirate ships, like
The
ghost
Loch
pirate
Ness
ships.
monster.
Hmm?
Yeah, I feel like one of the things that we were talking about before this started was time waves. It's just the fact being that like we just realized scientifically that sound waves don't quite work the way that we thought, and light waves don't quite work the way that we thought. So
No.
time waves are like
It
really
and it's interesting if you look at
questions.
it. If you look at ancient cultures, they seem to have a better grasp of it than our modern physicists do. Even Neil deGrasse Tyson was like, the Babylonians talked about time waves better than we do.
Mhm.
And you're like, really? And it's like, yeah, yeah. And by the way, I do trust the knowledge of the ancients a lot more than us. Oh my God, we're under a minute. How did we get here so fast? This was a fascinating one. I love this.
I know. I feel like there needs to be a part three.
Oh my God, guys, we can't just keep doing time.
My God, I feel like we're talking about Rhode Island again.
We
I
keep
know.
running out of time.
We had the smallest state in the union, and we did 4 hours on it.
We
You
have a
know,
lot cut out of those episodes too.
I know. But I feel like we may have to pay for the upgrade.
Oh, darn.
I think I have the upgrade. Let me look into it. Let me
All
look
right.
into it. I think I
We are
have
less than a minute, so we have to do our sign off. But hey, let us know, give us ideas, give us comments, and give us questions and share a lot.
Yes,
Bye.
Bye.
Oh my God, I look like a ridiculous moron.
Hey!
No, that was me. I was talking about me.